Live from New York. It's the show that might have an early upset alert.
Might or definitively
You know
does?
what? Actually, a guarantee alert.
Guarantee.
I haven't guaranteed anything on the show.
So it's an upset guarantee.
We
It's
all
not a
know what
guarantee
game
alert.
it is.
It's an upset guarantee.
It's in a while. Yeah. Wow. 20 minutes.
Well, he's way behind in the point total. So
Way behind.
You need something
Every
big.
one of my picks has
Yeah, but it's
lost.
You're
way behind in the point total. Brew and Coach
double.
Greg are.
We start Ravens and Cowboys Sunday at 4 on Fox. Baltimore still favored now only by a point. Brew, what can Dallas prove with a win?
He's right. It's a prove it weekend. I know the narrative out there is the Cowboys can't show you anything in the regular season. It's all about the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Partially true. The only team, Nick, that can play mediocre football throughout the regular season and we won't write them off as a contender is obviously the Chiefs.
And by the way, I'm not even sure that's true.
Well,
Because-
last year that was the case.
No, last year they were written off repeatedly. So we don't have to talk Chiefs now. Last year they were written off repeatedly. People said the Browns. I don't think there's any team actually that can be mediocre all year and not have people doubt them. If there is one, it's the Chiefs. But even the Chiefs last year were.
I agree. Last year they were written off, but because they won this year, really, if they're 10-7, nobody's thinking, oh, they don't have a chance. But anyway, back to Dallas. Yeah, they have a lot to prove. Because, like I said, we'll judge them based on how they play in the regular season. If they beat Baltimore with the reigning MVP, and the Ravens are absolutely desperate. They have got to get this win. Lamar Jackson, by the way, 20-3 against the NFC. All right? And if they are able to beat this team, then this, Nick, will be the biggest regular season win of Mike McCarthy's Dallas tenure. And you look back, you'll see, because they beat Philly a couple years ago at the end of the season to win the division. Yeah. But remember, Philly had Gardner Minshew playing quarterback as Jalen Hurts was out. They beat Cincinnati the same year early in the season, but it was week 2 when we know the Bengals aren't that good.
And also that was Cooper Rush. That wasn't even with Dak.
That beat because Dak was hurt.
Yeah,
right.
Dak
So if you really look through the games, this would be the biggest win in the Mike McCarthy era. And you could go back a few years probably before that. So this may be their biggest win in 7-8 years, maybe a decade if they get it done. So, yeah, there's a lot to – what they'll prove too, Nick, is that last week, which I think you already believe.
Was a fluke.
Last week was their Arizona game last year. Remember, they only lost, 2 touchdowns, but it was Josh Dobbs playing quarterback for the Cardinals. So if they bounce back this week with this win – we'll just be like, hey, they had a hiccup. They're still the 12
hiccup
team.
to me is the better word. I said fluke, and I immediately wanted to pull it back. Fluke seems too dismissive, but that last week was a hiccup if they win this week. Here's the other thing, and I don't know that you'll like or agree with this, but you might if it comes to pass. They win this week, they will, to me, prove they are clearly the team to beat in the NFC East. That they are that.
You think for sure?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the Eagles, let's see what they do.
Yeah, the Eagles, by the way, play the Saints this weekend, and they're underdogs. I just think this would resonate more. And I think that the Cowboys, up to this point in the season, I can't say they've been more impressive than the Eagles. They both have a bad loss, different types of bad loss. Cowboys getting run off the field, and the Eagles blowing a game they shouldn't have lost. The other thing is, I feel like they will be starting to build a resume that goes a bit in the face of your tomato can stuff. Because while it is true that the Cowboys, they add to their stats, they get gaudy numbers, they add to their point differential, and they blow out the bad teams, which maybe makes them look more formidable than they actually are. Since McCarthy's been there, since they've been winning 12 games, I went through it, every year, they win 4 or 5 games against playoff teams or teams that, were above 500, just missed out. Last year, when you always say that they just beat up on tomato cans, they beat the Rams, who went to the playoffs. They beat Seattle, who was above 500.
That was a confidence.
They didn't make the playoffs.
Seattle was above 500. They beat Philadelphia. They beat Detroit, and we pretend they didn't. All right, the year before, they beat Cincinnati, as you mentioned. They beat a 13-win Minnesota team. They beat the Giants twice, who went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. They beat Philadelphia. They beat Tampa Bay in the playoffs after losing to them in the regular season. The year before that, they beat the Chargers, the Eagles, the Patriots, who were a playoff team, and New Orleans, who were all above 500.
Mac Jones, Patriots.
Again, I'm just saying those aren't. I'm not saying they're amazing teams, but I don't know that Baltimore's an amazing team. And so I think that it is true that the Cowboys look like a world beater typically against the dregs of the league. And it makes Dak's numbers better, their point differential better, all of that. But there aren't a lot of teams that have 4+ wins against good teams year over year. And so the Cowboys will be building that resume, because I don't know what Cleveland's going to end up being. I'm more skeptical of Cleveland than Vegas is, than a lot of people are, but they dominated that game. They lost to New Orleans. And one other thing that I just want to throw at you real quick, because I think if they win, it's not going to be because this is the Rico Dowdle breakout game. They're going to have to beat the Ravens. Like the Chiefs, Rashee Rice, 8. The Raiders, Devontae Adams, 8. CeeDee Lamb's better than either of those players. Devontae is an all-time great, but he's better than him at this point. I think if they beat the Ravens, Dak to CeeDee is going to have a big game. And if they have a big game, I'm hard-pressed right now to find a more lethal quarterback-wide receiver connection than those two. Like Jamar Chase is not really gotten off the ground yet this year.
But you would take, given the choice, you would definitely take Burrow and Chase. You're just saying based on these first two games.
And last season, where it was the most dynamic connection in the league. Like it's the.
Based on last
Burrow was hurt.
Right,
if you were given the choice and Burrow's going to be healthy, you can have Burrow and Chase.
No, yes, okay. I would, but I'm saying as far as most prolific, most effective. It'd be we'd be going on the second season of that being the case.
Yeah.
What are you?
Yeah, two and one. Purdy and Ayuk are about to get rolling.
Okay. Well, don't sleep on Darnold and Justin Jefferson just because it's so
No,
far.
I'm sleeping.
So
I'm snoozing. I'm letting you know. I'm snoozing.
Unwise. All right.
Surprised you didn't say Derek Carr and Rashid Shaheed.
Not bad, though.
Hey,
before we move on,
he got speed.
I thought there's one thing or a few things that Micah has been sounding the alarm on, hit my vibes meter really quick, because I feel like, and it's something Mangini said, and it was a lot of the narrative discourse post-Saints, like, you know what? New defensive coordinator, they find a wrinkle, you don't have a bunch of plays to draw on. Remember 3 years ago, like Mangini said, on his podcast, which I know you're a huge fan of, he talked about effort. In this clip, he talked about not wanting it more. So I say one time kind of just slip of the lip, like slip of the tongue, like, effort. But then it feels like he's really hammering it home. We did not try as hard. We didn't meet the moment. So that's hit alarm bells.
I don't love that. I think you say that in the locker room. You say that in the locker room. It's great for us. We are the media, and we can talk about it. But I don't think you need to publicly go out there and say, because the way he said it was like, guys don't want it. Some guys don't want it as much as I do.
Yeah.
That's what he said. And even if that's true, I don't know that it's true, but even if it is, say that in the locker room to your guys. If you say it out public, now it becomes fodder, and it can make dissension in the locker room. So it's just,
I don't think there's a lot of stuff just for the locker room with the Cowboys, for good or for bad. Because bad job by me for getting the safety's name. But the Cowboys safety that was like, Micah's podcast, what are you focused on? That wasn't in the, it wasn't just in the locker room. And then Micah responded.
Right, there you go.
You know what I mean? And so I think they're, for good or for bad, kind of an open book. At least it wasn't on his podcast.
For bad.
It was in a regular media setup. Yeah.
On the other side of the ball, the winless Ravens. A loss would put them into a hole that few teams have dug out of. Here's the stat. Only 6 0-3 teams have made the playoffs since the moon landing.
Wow. In the Super Bowl era.
Moon landing. Can you give us a year?
Since
I know it because I was a really good student.
1969. Since you were 1 year old, I looked it up on Wikipedia. Baltimore season over with a loss, bro.
Remind the audience, and I'm not trolling, but this is
it
gives extra resonance to Brew's pick, or to Brew's opinion. This is Brew's Super Bowl champion pick.
I wore this for a reason. This answer your question?
Well,
no, it doesn't.
Not necessarily.
No, I will not be off. Their season will not be over. You just said it. 6 teams have made the playoffs after an 0-3 start since 1979. Well, they gonna be the one.
As a positive
no, I'm just saying it's possible because we at 0-2 we're writing teams off. At 0, we're always writing teams off. It just happened in 2018 with the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson. Now they weren't. I don't even know if you believe, as good as this Ravens team. And here's the thing, Nick, that gives me even more reason. Now, obviously, they'd be on life support.
Yeah.
But I would not be like, they're done. They will not make the playoffs. And here's why. First of all, what we think right now is at least either the first or second best team in the AFC North, Cincinnati, is also 0-2. Now, they'll probably be 1-2. They play Washington, I think, after this weekend. But still, 1-2, 0-3, it's possible. And they have all their division games left. Now, I know you got to win, obviously, outside of the division too, but I still would not write them off. Last year, they went on a stretch where they won 10 of 11 games, all right? And so they can get hot. Now, I know their schedule is a monster. Well, that's legitimate. But quickly, Nick, I know they have some personnel differences, but if they're essentially the same team as they were a year ago, then they can come back from 0-3. Now, if they're not, if they're kind of what we've seen, and look, after the Chiefs game, no one was thinking, oh, they've lost it. They're not nearly as good as last year. They had a chance to win that game. And so I think last week was a fluke, although they've done that in the past. They've lost leads. So, I would not write them off.
So I will. And and that'll be a flip-flop by me because I did pick them to go to the playoffs.
No data.
But the schedule is the primary reason.
It's a heck of a schedule.
I mean, it is, as I said yesterday, there's 3 layups. Washington, Denver, Giants. That's it. Every other game is losable. Now, obviously, I'm not saying, but
but the division games are just tough.
Division games are tough. The team a lot of people thought was going to be the worst in the division, Pittsburgh, right now is the best. And Lamar, oddly, has only beaten Pittsburgh 1 game ever, and that was a game that Duck Hodges played. So that's the first thing it would mean to me. The other thing it would mean to me is, in addition to Jim committing football fratricide on his brother John, as far as took your coordinator, took your running backs, I'm rolling, your team's in trouble. It would also mean their offseason was full of mistakes because this was the best team in football last year until it wasn't. This was a team that had historical measures for success in DVOA, margin of victory, the thing leading in every game, blowing teams out. All of the above.
A bunch of good teams.
Right. 100% blew out good teams, blew out bad teams. And they decided, all right, we're going to, trade away an offensive lineman, let another one walk in free agency, move on from Patrick Queen. And our big offseason addition is going to be a big bruising running back. And if they fall, this should be the Derrick Henry game.
Yes.
The Cowboys, for 2 years, that's been their biggest struggle, stopping the run. So if they lose this game, to me, that will be an indication Derrick Henry's not working out so well. Or the defense is in total shambles. You know what I mean? It's it's unlikely Derrick Henry rolls and they lose unless the defense is just a debacle. And so, to me, if they lose on Sunday, I think they will be dead in the water.
Here's historically teams that started 0-3 after making the conference championship, Brew, or the Super Bowl. The Rams made it to the Super Bowl. Both finished 7-9, and then Kurt Warner was the reigning MVP, just like Lamar.
And he's the only reigning MVP ever to start 0-3 at the quarterback position.
So,
I
don't know. I'm a little bit nervous. As a Lamar guy, I'm nervous.
Go over there.
Maybe.
Go ahead.
Where?
I can stand by myself. No, you want to write them off. Just write them off.
Hold on. I want to be clear.
Just say it with your chest.
I'm not.
That's all right.
It hasn't happened yet.
Brew, I want to be clear here. I am not saying right now they're dead. I'm saying if they lose this game. And also, we can talk about this more tomorrow. This kind of has to be a Lamar over my dead body game. Kind of has to be.
We already had one of those.
I know. And that's one of the risks.
2/3 of the game.
Well, it's too bad. Then don't blow the game to the Raiders.
Hand the ball off to Derrick Henry.
Can't lose
just run. They can just run all
That's
over.
one of the biggest mistakes of the offseason, as you point out. not figuring out in the offseason how are we going to use Lamar and Derek.
That's correct.
They don't know. At least that's how I looked at the first two
That doesn't take a week to figure out. We could do that.
Do they look like they
in
know?
one block.
Do they? Well, you do have a dynamic running quarterback. So it is. I mean, you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to minimize Lamar to maximize Derek. You got to maximize both.
We don't need to have a conference about that at the Marriott.
Well, clearly we
could do it in 20 minutes.
Got some plays? Todd Monken.
Right. Give me some advice.
Can we now get to my favorite part of the show?
I was trying to.
I know. I just need 1 minute here.
That's all you're going to get. Post-mortem analysis from Sirianni, who said he's standing by kicking that last field goal and going up 6 against the Falcons, even though football nerds say 6 is not that important.
Did he say that?
No. Can I just go for a moment? Thank you. All right. So we're no longer talking about the decision to pass. Right. We're talking about after that. It's a minute 40 left. It's 4th and 3. The ball's at the 5. What do? I just want to level set. If you go for it there, the best case scenario is game over, you win. Yep. Pick up 3 yards, game's over.
Right.
The worst case scenario, if you go for it there, is Atlanta gets the ball with a minute 40, 60 yards away from field goal range, 95 yards away from beating you. So your best case scenario is you win.
Yep.
Your worst case scenario is they're 95 yards from beating you. If you kick, your best case scenario is you're up 6, which is what happened. And your worst case scenario, which is also your best case scenario, is they are 70 yards from beating you, same amount of time. Now, they no longer can tie you, but it's still, they are shorter to beat you than your worst case scenario of going for it. But that's not even the problem with the quote. The problem with the quote is what he said 1 minute prior about how what they did last week on Monday night or Friday night against the Packers informed his decision. That right there, you get your car keys taken away from you. Not even because you said a little bit more in the time, and the time difference was 27 seconds left in the game versus a minute 40. But it was the difference between they were up 2 in the Green Bay game. 2. So, yeah, a field goal there is massively valuable because now a field goal, if you're up 2 and you don't get it, now a field goal beats you. To treat being up 2 the same as treating up 3 and Bruin, the whole thing, he was like, I had my people run the numbers of whether with teams up 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Those are, you can't lump those all together. And if you lump those all together, you're cosplaying as an analytics guy. Because he pretends he's an analytics guy. He's like, no, we're thinking about it. But you don't understand what you're looking at.
The only thing I'll say, and I hear what you're saying, the probability of winning went from, it was 94%. This is according to NFL Next Gen stats. It was 94% before you would go that 4th down. Yeah. When they kicked the field goal, it fell to 85%. Okay, so that's 9 percentage points. Nick, they had held Atlanta to 1 touchdown the entire game. The last series by the Falcons, they stopped them on downs. I got to be honest, in that situation, you should feel good about we can stop them from scoring a touchdown. I think a big fault, and there were a lot of faults, obviously, and including Sirianni, but Vic Fangio going soft on defense.
I agree, but
stick with your regular defense that's been shutting them down all game.
Don't explain, don't complain. When he's asked that question, like, I made the call. I'm not focused.
That's what Hub said. We're moving on next week.
We're moving on, like the fact that he has to explain his decision. It
shows the insecurity.
Exactly, and he feels like his job's on the line. But if you're like, well, there's 9% of this and this and that, you're like, and they just give people fodder to just rip them apart.
I also have terrible news based on Brew's dismissal of that 9 percentage points. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.